All right, everybody. We just had a little non-recorded warm up, a little audio therapy real quick, because the subject matter tonight is all about what we listened to in the form of three songs. First was the OJ's For the Love of Money. Before that, Pink Floyd, Money. And before that, Fatback, Money. What the hell is this money, money, money? Okay. What's going on is you are attending the Student Parent Center Cost of Attendance Adjustment Request Form workshop, in which you as a student parent learn about what is the cost of attendance adjustment request form, and then how do you utilize this form to maximize your financial aid and scholarships package in a way that is, I'm going to say, community competent when it comes to what it is that most student parents, lived and learned experience, prefer from a cost of attendance adjustment request form, and how they utilize the finances as far as what form of finances that come after you fill it out. I'm Tommy Lanier, program coordinator for the Student Parent Center. And along with me is Anita Adams, student parent success counselor with the Student Parent Center. We are going to go through a series of informational slides, talk to you about them, and then Anita will break down a very important component much, much better than me. In fact, I asked her, pretty please, could you do this one more time? The process of filling out or uploading your forms to the cost of attendance adjustment request form portal through the Berkeley website. Anita will have more detail for it. I don't even want to talk about it and get it wrong. That's how far behind I feel sometimes when it comes to that. So you are definitely in for a treat. And this is ongoing, meaning it's not one and done about the cost of adjustment request form. There's no real hard law policy of you can only do it once, one and done. So consider this to be, just like everything else right now, a fluid situation, meaning expenses pop up unexpectedly. Don't think, well, you already filled out a cost of attendance, a COAAR form, I guess I just can't do it again. You can. That being said, I'm going to stop and pass the microphone to Anita Adams. Hey, Anita.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. I just wanted to let you all know this is just the beginning of the cost of attendance process. You're probably going to have a lot of questions after this, maybe some very specific questions. Feel free to, if you're here live in the workshop, ask them when we get to that portion. But if you're watching the recording, you can always reach out to me or Tommy, as well as book a one-on-one appointment if you'd like to go through through your questions and your individual items. We're happy to help. And it's great to see everyone.
All right, all right. Anita, if you could make me co-host, I just need to be able to share the slides. So we are gonna really just get straight into it. We know everybody, we know it's 6 o'clock at night for everybody, unless you're somewhere else, a different time zone. And we may or may not go all the way until 7:30, but the idea is we definitely put more than enough time on the calendar to go through this. The cost of attendance adjustment request form is something that after we share, we'd hope that this is something demystified, something that when you think about it, it's a more reflexive process. It's not something that you kind of stiffen up and say, oh, what, that, I don't know. So that is our goal. I am going to prepare these slides and get straight into it. Questions that arise like impulsively, like, yeah, I got this burning question. I'm not going to say don't ask it. I'll just say put it in the chat, and between myself and Anita, we can answer those. We will have a Q&A at the end, though. So unless it's like a hot button issue, we would just ask for you to wait until the Q&A portion. And that being said, let me pull up these lovely slides right here. Bam. And let me go into present mode. All right. Can everybody see that? Yeah. All right. Okay. So just like it says, student parent cost of attendance adjustment request form, or COAAR form for short, interchangeable. You might hear us say COAAR, same thing. In a nutshell, you have a cost of attendance. It's what you see right now for the financial aid process in your Cal Central. You want that adjusted. there's a lot going on, need a little bit more. These slides are going to walk you through, well, along with me and Anita, these slides are going to expand a little bit more on how do you request that in the form in order to make that request legit. So our agenda is financial aid basics, and we really mean it, basics. This is not a financial aid and scholarships, seminar. We really are here to talk about a core form, a deep dive into how to fill it out, and then a non-recorded question and answer session. Again, this is not a financial aid, an exhaustive financial aid seminar. This is really about the basics. So some of this you may or may not get and say, yeah, that's what we mean when we say also just reach out to us and we can talk to you at a later date to give you a little bit more of the granular stuff that might come to mind. All right, so about financial aid at a glance. Financial aid has two parts. Your cost of attendance, known as the budget, and this is the, I'm gonna read it verbatim to a certain degree, but I'm also gonna flow through it with the idea that the slide is trying to communicate to you. So the cost of attendance is also known as a budget, and this is what determines the maximum amount of your financial aid, the grants, the scholarships, loans, work study that you can receive for the academic year. Your cost of attendance is found in Cal Central under My Finances. Then you click on View Awards for the current year. The cost of attendance will be in the center column. So think cost of attendance again of like, this is the number, and that number constitutes, well, not only the cost of attendance, but the amount of funding that I'm slated to have as is right now. All right. Your awards. This is the aid that UC Berkeley offers you, the grants, the loans, the scholarship, work study where applicable. The maximum amount that you receive is determined by your cost of attendance and your student contribution. And that can be viewed on the right side of that awards page in Cal Central. So just to break this down, because this is very, very important. This is bare basics 101. Please know this. The cost of attendance is the budget. I'm kind of going like this, kind of like a wallet, right? We'll talk about that more. Your award is what goes into the wallet, what goes into the budget. And that's made up of loans, scholarships, grants, work study. And that amount, like, why is it that amount, that number? That's determined through a process. Verification has a part to do with it. And excuse me, that process is determined by a student contribution appeal and other factors, but the main one that we want to focus on tonight, for a good reason, we'll have more slides about it, is the student contribution appeal. All right, let me move forward here. Cost of attendance adjustment request form, or COAAR form. This is the process that you need to go through to increase the amount of awards, whether it be grant, scholarships, loans, work study, a combination or some, maybe not that, maybe not this, to pay for your estimated cost of attendance. So, like we said the last slide, consider your cost of attendance to be a wallet, and your awards, they're like the money that goes into the wallet. You will never be given more money than what you can fit into your wallet. So you need to make a COAAR form, you need to fill out a cost of attendance adjustment request form, a COAAR form, to make your wallet bigger. And I'm going to double down and say that one more time, because that's another essential element of this. Your cost of attendance, that's the wallet, that's the budget. Your awards, your grants, your scholarships, the loans that you probably don't want, because I feel you, all of that, that's a part of your wallet. Budget, kind of interchangeable, that idea. This is the component that holds the award, the money that's in the wallet. So wallet, budget, money, award. Hopefully that'll make more sense than it seems to make now, but that's the best and the most tested, tried and true metaphor that we've been able to use over the years to make it make as much sense as possible. All right, and then one more time, you will never be given more money than what can fit into your wallet based off of several factors. First one, student contribution, expected family income, expected family contribution, verification, several factors, but you won't be given more money than what can fit into your wallet, meaning you won't be given more than the allotted budget amount. That means that if you need more, you go through this process here, the cost of attendance adjustment request form, to make your wallet bigger, make the budget bigger. All right. So here's a good fun fact. And I just want to thank Anita one more time for fleshing this one out, because sometimes it can get confusing and we need to demystify. Student contribution, SC, versus total income. So this is verbatim. Student contribution, also known as expected family contribution, or EFC. That's the amount of money a student is expected to pay each year for their education. That may be zero, which allows you to receive the maximum in need-based aid. And that's typically gift aid, subsidized loans, and or work study. So the shorter than short version is, if your expected contribution to this situation is zero, then that means the university will, lack of better words, assume that that's true and allot as much as possible in gift aid, subsidized loans, equity funding as possible, before we get to some of the things that's like, I don't know about that. Total income for the federal application, the federal application for student, for financial, you know what, I forgot the acronym, what it stands for. I'm pretty sure I'm not the first one, but total income for FAFSA for the year can impact what you are able to add when you complete a core. So it may be zero, which allows you to receive the maximum in need-based aid, typically gift aid, subsidized loan, and or work study. And that's based off your income for the 2018 tax year. So not the year before last, 2 years before that, the year before, okay? Now, am I the one that made that policy? No, but I will go on record and say, you know, it does work tremendously in the favor of student parents from our experience over the past maybe 4 years, well, 5 years now, since the policy has been changed. So those are the two differentiators between student contribution or expected family income and total income. Types of appeals and adjustments, very, very important. This is why we just differentiated the two. A student contribution appeal, that allows the student to appeal the student contribution due to a reduction in their own resources, like a lower income now than in 2008. And I think the biggest thing that leads the charge for this type of appeal is, you probably guessed it, maybe downsizing in your work schedule. You're going to school now, things are different. Other things that, you know, transparently do show up is like, you know, when I first started school, there were 2 incomes in the house, and now they're just 1. Okay. And that's real. And I'll stop there. I'm pretty sure we can deduce what that means, but that's real. And that does happen. And that's okay. That's not a walk of shame, either one of them. All right. That means that what you've been expected to contribute has changed, and you don't have to necessarily deal with any ramifications off that. You can appeal that. All right. The second bullet point on the first end of the slide is very, very pertinent. Student parents with a 0 student contribution may still benefit by doing this appeal if they plan on submitting items for the cost of attendance adjustment request form. Cost of attendance adjustment request form. So this allows students to increase their cost of attendance by submitting proof of costs that go over their standard cost of attendance. So the cost that you have now, not the cost that they might have assumed, they, meaning the university as a whole, might have assumed, those costs, you're like, nah, a little bit more than that, player. That's what we mean as far as the cost of attendance adjustment request form. So one more time, think about it like this. Student contribution appeal. Yeah, I had that back in the day, but I don't have that right now. All right, that's okay. But I need to appeal that and change that, because you guys are walking around here with a few more zeros next to my name, and that's just not the truth, okay? So can we appeal that? Yes. Cost of attendance adjustment request form, what we're here tonight for, is, check this out. Yes, you gave me an amount allotted towards these expenses. However, due to the difference in what I've made before. I'm just trying to tie it all in. Due to the difference of what I used to bring in before and what I have to pay for now, which is more than what I was given, I need to submit that there, okay? I need to submit this core form, and this is where we go a little bit further into it, because one of the biggest myths or half-truths, realistically, and I'm being respectful, because there is, it's a truth, but a half-truth for student parents and other equity programs, I'll go on record to say, is that when people say cost of attendance adjustment request form, they might say, well, no, I heard about this. It's just a bunch of loans. Don't do it. I'm here to say, and I'm not going to put words in Anita's mouth, but I'm pretty sure she'll say the same thing, is no, don't fall for it. Respectfully, that, you know, there are communities on campus where that actually is the rule of thumb. For us, we do have an ability in the student parent community to bring in outside scholarships. And that's where we say apply, apply, apply. Berkeley scholarships specifically, you can start there. And you can attend and or watch the Student Parent Scholarships series. That was actually spearheaded by Anita Adams. Did you guys know that? She's the founder of that. Ooh, so you got to give her props on that, all right? I didn't start that. Anita started that. And that is coming up very, very soon. So be on the lookout for more messaging about that. Why do I bring that up? Because during the core process, you might think, well, why do this if they're going to give me a bunch of loans instead of more gift aid? If you bring in outside gift aid, that offsets or replaces any loans that you might be offered, even if you accept them. And that's another conversation that we probably have a little time for in the Q&A section. So think about that. Also think about loans. You borrow them, they must be repaid. We all know that, but we just want to over communicate that. Federal direct subsidized loans up to $5,500 and federal direct unsubsidized up to $7,000. Anybody know the difference between unsubsidized and subsidized? Like one of the key differences, people? Anybody? You can put it in the chat. Maybe. I mean, you don't win nothing. I was just asking. Interest, yes. So a federal direct subsidized loan that does not accrue interest until you graduate. A federal unsubsidized loan, you might have to start accruing that interest as soon as you get to class, Blair, okay? And I don't know if that's the best thing in the world for some of you. I know it wasn't for me. However, we are not the ones to tell you to take one loan as opposed to the other. We try to stay as objective as possible, but those are the key differences between the two. The price, of course, but then the interest to graduation, relationship. Let's go a little further. What goes into building the estimated cost of attendance that you will request to adjust? A few things verbatim. There are different standard budgets formulated for on and off campus apartments, as well as for students who are commuters and students who reside in the residence halls. All of them are comprised of tuition and fees, housing and food costs, books and supplies costs, transportation costs, personal expenses, and loan fees. Based off of a 9-month academic year, fall, spring, summer is separate. This might look familiar to some of you because if you're on Cal Central, you might see this right there in that middle column in my finances, right? You see like, oh man, tuition and fees, that looks a little familiar. But yes, that is what goes into building the estimated cost of attendance. The actual numbers, no, I'm not going to read at the top, but you can see that there is a rubric, and some things are a little bit more or less depending if you're on campus or off campus. And in our community, on campus apartment, that's University Village. Off campus means an apartment or a house in the non-UC Berkeley owned property community. That could be, I wouldn't say anywhere like the moon, but for the most part, yeah, you know, in the region, you're good to go. As your eyes aren't deceiving you, on campus, there's a little bit more to the expense than off campus. And again, that's another presentation. We just want to give you the contrast and give you the budget numbers, the actual numbers for this academic year. So moving forward, the cost of attendance adjustment items, after we know what the university allots for you in general, how does this break down? You might think, well, yeah, I saw that books, tuition, food, supply, but there are more specific things that I didn't see there. And I need a little bit of support with what I need over here. Here are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and possibly more, and we'll get into that. Adjustment items for your cost of attendance adjustment request form that we're going to focus on tonight. All right. So the first one is housing, and that means rent, residence hall fees, and mortgage. So if you are a homeowner, please don't think, well, maybe I don't. Yes, you do. Transportation, computer purchases. What, man? Because I said transportation. That's why I thought commuter. I was super quick like that. My bad. Computer purchase once every 3 years, and we will explain. Necessary uninsured medical and dental, and it really is exactly like it's named. Thank you so much, Anita. Necessary uninsured medical and dental. Things that are necessary that are not covered by your current plan, medical and dental, or dental, meaning you can have one or the other or both. So yes. Moving costs for new off-campus students for truck rental and gas expenses. This is a very important one because it gets overlooked lots and lots of times. We'll go into that a little bit more, but put an asterisk next to that because that's very important for a lot of people. Special books and supplies. Student parents may have childcare expenses. Very key item to our community, not in the regular way people think, and we will get into that. Food and personal costs for your dependents were included in your cost of attendance at the time of verification review. We say that to say that probably won't be a overt line item in the cost of attendance adjustment request form, but that's not to say don't submit it, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Big asterisks. Thank you again, Anita. There are caps on each item. We will get into those, but it is not a blank check, so to speak. So what are those caps? This is where we unpack. This is where we move forward into the cost of attendance adjustment request form process. You're there. You want to increase your rent. The university gave me the standard budget. So right here it's 14,226 or 11,462 village or off campus. But when we divide that by about 9 or 10 months, it's like, I don't know if that is enough for me. I need a little bit more. I can request that my cost of attendance for housing be adjusted upward to a cap of $24.57 per month the academic year. That'll equal out to $22,116. So that difference between what they gave you and what you pay, so far as it doesn't go beyond that cap, I wouldn't say you wouldn't get funded, but the funding would stop at the cap. All right. So cost to include in this item, and this is very, very important. I'm so glad that these slides unpack what it is that these line items speak about on the core form. The cost to include in this item, this is very important. The actual cost of your housing. Don't leave that out. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's a lot going on paperwork wise, and it's like, oh snap, I forgot to actually put down right here how much I actually have to pay. Any utilities you pay, such as electricity, water, trash, internet, cell phone. If it goes over that allotment, that standard budget allotment breakdown monthly, yes, you should upload that even if you're in doubt. If you're married or living with a partner or family member or someone else on that lease or that agreement, month to month, that rent, that mortgage, it'll be split equally unless there are special circumstances. So think about it like this, and there's explanation here that we can get into a little bit more. The verbatim is correct, and I just want to asterisk it again and say that special circumstances, don't be scared of that term. It does not have to be catastrophe. It really means this other factor that's here in my household who is anticipated and expected to contribute this other half, they can't do it. This is why. Proper proof, proper proof. And that's where we say a financial aid may require additional documentation. And this is not your entire life, 12 point double spaced. Okay. Just something to say, hey, this is the situation. If you need more proof than this, then I will upload it. But bare basics. I've never known financial aid scholarships office to want to know that much. Just a letter of explanation and a little bit of proof of why this other factor isn't a factor, and you need the entire difference, not the amount prorated by how many people split or assume to split the rent or mortgage that you have. All right. Transportation.
Hey, Tommy, could
Oh,
I
yeah,
say
go ahead,
just one more note about that
Sure,
one?
sure, yes.
So it's especially important this year because financial aid is funding people, single parents with their full housing allotment in grant money, not loans. So if you're in the situation where you are the sole provider and your partner stays home, maybe because they're disabled or they're providing childcare or they don't have documentation to work, whatever the reason is, don't just ignore this step because it could actually get you grant money without having to apply for those outside scholarships.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tommy.
Thank you. Thank you. Because that's very important. And we always, as much as we don't have any explicit bias like that, right? We are always quick to give you the nudge when it comes to gift aid and quote unquote free money, the real free money, right? That's available to you, especially for something as precious as housing. Okay. Thank you so much, Anita. Transportation. All right. This is another very important one for a few things, a few reasons that go overlooked. So I'm glad we have unpacked this line item for the core form. Transportation, standard budget, 620 if you're in the village or 890 for academic year off campus. The maximum add-on is 1,500. So think what you have now as far as these standard maximums plus that 1,500, okay? Cost to include in this item: commuting to or from school and or dropping off kids at school and daycare, mileage, parking, tolls, public transportation costs like bridges, parking, like, I tried to get a parking pass, but every day I have to park for 30 minutes at this meter. If you need to save those expenses in the form of the actual printout version that some city streets give, or you can, take your bank statement and say, see this, you can highlight that. Like, this is how much I pay because I got to park and wait for a minute until my child gets out of school or daycare. That's exactly what you should upload. And the idea is when we say transportation, sometimes it's like, well, just gas money. You know what I'm saying? It's not just gas money. It's the entire experience that costs more than what you were given. Visits home during breaks with children. So a maximum of 2 trips per academic year, 1 term or 1 international trip allowed per year. So 2 trips domestically academic year, 1 trip international per academic year. And Anita, if you could help verify, is it still plus 1 dependent or is it more than 1 to the maximum of the transportation cap?
It's all of your dependents. So if you have more, it's however many dependents you have. But this one, it doesn't matter if your partner is bringing home income or not. This one is just for you and your dependents.
All right. Thank you, Anita. That means that when you see this and you do have the need to travel home, please don't fret and think, well, it's just for me. No, it is not just for you. It is for you and dependents, and it's up to the maximum. So it's I wouldn't say it's not going to pay for everything. Period, point blank, see you tomorrow. This is more of be mindful that there's still a maximum to how much you can request. Sometimes there's still the need to come out of pocket. However, we advise, like other programs advise, try your best to be as, and I don't want to say any certain airlines, you don't have to go that route, but a more reasonably priced ticket will fit you into that budget cap. and it'll probably not come under any scrutiny by reviewers at financial aid and scholarships. So if I wanted to go first class with me and my two teenagers, and it was like $5,200, I might have some explaining to do. If I just want to do Southwest, okay, nice little commuter flight, something well under or a little bit below or above the maximum add-on, that might be more sensible. And I'm using myself as an example. Another thing, and this is very, very important, any other transportation expenses that come up. So car registration, insurance, car repairs, I'm going to go on record and say, no, not the oil change every 6 months. More like I was on the freeway and it just started smoking and I don't know what the hell happened. And I really don't have this money. That type of car repair. Car tires, right? I was just driving along here and one day I looked up and they looked like the guy from the Student Parent Center. They're bald, okay? Those tires are skin bald. What the hell? I can't even push it down the street. These damn tires might pop. Those are the expenses you want to put on your core form. I don't know if you're like, I want triple gold Dayton's and some candy paint. Okay, that may not be approved. I'm just calling it an inkling. I'm being sarcastic. I'm pretty sure for a fact that you probably won't get the gold Dayton's and the candy paint approved. All right, documentation, calculation of cost of driving, parking, tolls, shopping cart for plane tickets for you and all your children, at least 21 days in advance of travel. So not for like the travel on the ground, BART, car, just for the plane ride, it needs to be 21 days in advance. And we did not create that rule. I'm not saying that's how it should go, but that is how it goes. We just want to be transparent about that part. All right, computer. This is actually a pretty dope line item, man. And it's been like this ever since I was a student back in the Stone Age at this point. And I am a huge proponent of it. And there is an asterisk, triple asterisk. Okay. Thank you, Anita, because this is real. Okay. Computer, standard budget, no standard budget right now. No standard budget right now. Maximum add-on, $3,000. That can get you something nice. All right. That can get you something pretty nice. Cost to include in this item when you submit the form is the cost for one computer of your choosing. And let's say it's a computer and a printer, or you have a printer and you need more ink. If it goes into the maximum add-on budget, then that's fine. Per financial aid, that's fine too. The computer is the focal point. I would say should be a computer, but it should be a computer. But if you have other items that go along with the computer, the accessories, don't count that out. Now, the triple asterisk for this is really real, you guys. You can only get a new computer one time every 3 years. So if you do this, be mindful of that. Very rarely is there an exception. That doesn't mean you can't have any other technological resources used to assist you on campus. It just means through this process, it would have to be like a super extenuating circumstance to get that cleared. And the documentation, shopping cart or actual cost, meaning I'm getting ready to pay for it, but I don't have the money. I'm going to submit this in the core as a line item or I did pay for it and I really didn't have the money like that. So here's the receipt and I'm going to upload that into the portal for the cost of attendance adjustment request form. Next, big one, medical and dental. Standard budget, none. Maximum add-on, $5,000, okay? Cost to include in this item, expenses not covered by insurance, including co-pays. So it's like a microcosm of the entire core process. What you paid, but then there's a little bit more that's like, yeah, I don't have that. I don't have that. That part was like, what's that? That should be the expense that's not covered by insurance, including copay. So checkups, lab work, prescriptions, optical, dental, physical therapy, psychological counseling. Yes. Psychological counseling as well. That is an expense covered not by insurance, including the copay. Any medical or dental expenses for your children. That is very, very important. So You know, I'm not saying anybody has a kid named Junior. This is just an imaginary hypothetical thing, but let's say Junior needs some braces. And just like me, you might say, I don't have for that. Maybe I can get this supplemented through additional aid via the COAAR form. So one more time, and I want to emphasize on that, any medical or dental expenses, not just for you, but for your children as well. All right. Very, very important verbatim copy of the billing statement or estimate, including patient name, cost, date, type of treatment. I'm going to asterisk that the billing statement and or estimate must indicate the amount paid by insurance. The part I want to asterisk is under federal law, HIPAA laws, you do have a right to privacy. If it's something where you're saying to yourself, I don't know if I want to share all of that, as long as you have something that indicates the general cost, the theme of what it is you're doing. Like I'm just using myself as an example. This is a real thing. I didn't fill out a core, but I got four wisdom teeth pulled and a root canal. And I just feel some type of way about sharing that part. I can, blur that part out, but I do want to have something up there that mentions that it's a dental procedure. So we don't necessarily want to blot out the dental aspect of it. But the point I'm trying to make is that you still have your right to privacy if you need to utilize that in this process. Drum roll, please. Oh my goodness. Heart and soul of the COAAR for a lot of student parents. This is the line item of truth right here. Cost of attendance adjustment request form for childcare expenses. Okay. Standard budget, none. Maximum add-on, $2,267 per month. Cost to include in this item, childcare cost for dependents under the age of 14. I'll asterisk that and say if, and this is respectful. This is 100% respectful, you guys. If you have a dependent who might be 24 physically, but cognitively 14, do not hesitate to submit your expense request for that dependent. Okay, this is not the shame game going on right now. This is real life. If you have a dependent that might be over the age of 18 but still need specific care that calls for more funding, then that's what it is, and that is just fine. Submit that, please. Okay. This can be provided by a licensed provider or a family friend or member. So you might think before now, I don't know if I can fill this out because Auntie Mabel is watching my dependent. Uncle Ralph is watching my dependent. That's fine. That's actually fine. You do need to have some type of license documentation. We'll get into that in like 90 seconds. But the key thing is that if you are married, you're in a domestic partnership, your spouse, they must be working, or a student. They must be in a situation that you can provide proper proof to say, they're not available to do this. They're not available to do this. If you're not married, you're not with a spouse, that's self-explanatory. But if you are, then you need to provide proper proof. Not to say that, you need to do it. If not, forget about it. This is just to make things easier on the front end. If you provide this up front, it kind of keeps the process from slowing down with any questions that could be answered up front with, the proper proof based off of the inquiries that we try to anticipate and neutralize. I think that's the best word I can think about when we talk about that. Documentation for licensed providers, 2 canceled checks and a copy of the invoice or contract. For non-licensed providers, 2 canceled checks and a signed letter from the provider. Some people say, well, I don't have any checks. I don't write checks. Okay, some proof of payment. It could be, a bank statement if that encompasses everything that needs to encompass: the name of the provider, the amount you paid, your name as the person who, it's your account. Sensibly though, if you could do something, you can go online and maybe download an invoice template, a proof of payment template. That might be a little more efficient. However, we're not here to tell you this other alternate way is the way. These are other, like the asterisk says, we're sharing types of items and documentation that's been accepted in the past. Last but not least, I want to kind of double down. Just like every other expense, you may not have made the payment yet. The invoice is just as important as an actual contract, because in theory and in practice, if you're filling out a COAAR, then that denotes that you can't pay for it yet because you don't have the funding yet. So don't fret or don't be intimidated by that. All right. All right, we're almost done with this portion, and then I believe Anita is going to walk us through how to actually upload and get this COAAR process underway. Special books and supplies. Standard budget, $1,118. Maximum add-on, non-applicable. Now, am I going to just say, money's just falling from the sky? Probably not. But technically, there's no maximum as far as the add-on. The cost to include in this item is the items needed in addition to regular required materials. It includes computer supplies, distance learning additional supplies, and that is, well, it's been there before, but I think, in our COVID related reality that we're in, that's just as important as any other supply. It's a real supply. That's what I'm trying to say. It's a real supply. Please submit that.
Tommy, may I interject real quick? So,
sure. Go ahead, Anita.
So we wrote these slides last year before we really knew how they would handle these sorts of situations at the financial aid office. And so if you're needing to buy these COVID distance learning supplies, I still recommend you request them, but the acceptance rate has been mixed. It really just depends on the person processing it and how well you make your case in needing the items. So this is definitely not one of those guaranteed ones. It's a work in progress that we're working on right now and trying to get accepted.
Thank you, Anita. Yeah, we are not in a pre-COVID situation, and this is not, our post-COVID UC Berkeley experience yet. So we're right there in the middle. Do not factor it out. Submit it. The other thing that is worth noting is that these special books and supplies, these are things that are applicable to the entire class, meaning it can't just be you. Like, I just really, I like the book that they have in paperback, but I just really like that hardcover, boy, that hardcover. It can't be that, you know what I'm saying? I used to do that, but I couldn't fill out a core form for it. So that's just something to note. It has to be for the entire course, the entire class, when it comes to special books and supplies. Relocation expenses, very important. Standard budget, none. Maximum add-on, $3,000. Cost to include in this item. Rental truck expenses and gas expenses. Big important asterisks, relocation expenses don't include security deposits or the purchase of household items, flights, other expenses related to securing living arrangements prior to the start of the term. So it really is a verb and not a noun. Does that make sense? It's literally the process of relocating and not the idea and the grand theory of it as you transition. This is for primarily newly admitted students. We don't see too much we don't see too many line items being filled out for continuing students in this sense. Not to say don't do it. We don't see that much of it. So I don't know if I have a crystal clear answer on what the outcome would be if you're not in your first semester and you filled out a relocation expense line item before, and now you're going to do it again. If you haven't done it before and you think, wait a minute, I did that, and you still have your proof and you still have your expenses, I'd encourage you to submit it. Would I say that it absolutely positively guaranteed that it'd be approved? I can't do that, but I will encourage you to submit it with the expectation that it'll be strongly considered for reimbursement. Anita?
Yeah, I actually asked financial aid this question, especially because this used to only be able to be requested from people in their first year at Berkeley. That was a hard, fast rule. But because so many people did distance learning last year and did not move, you're able to request it if you're not in your first year at Berkeley, but it has to have happened in that academic year. So if you guys just moved up here to start fall 2021, then that would be okay to request it this year. If you had moved last year, you can't request it the year after you incurred the expenses.
So thank you for the update. That's really
Yeah.
good to know, everybody. So yes. If you fall under that category, do not hesitate to file that line item for this expense. All right. Very good. Thank you, Anita. Research, field work, or thesis expenses. We see this probably more prevalent in graduate student research with, honors thesis, undergraduate research. It can be overlooked, but don't overlook it. It does come into play, especially for those maybe second to last semester, summer. Summer expenses are different, even though this is not intended for summer. Even though you have two different budgets, two different costs of attendance, summer relative to fall and spring, I'll explain. So the standard budget is none. The maximum add-on is $5,000. Cost to include in this item is that's any expense that you must incur for your research, fieldwork, or thesis, and the documentation is pretty straightforward. Itemized list approved and signed by faculty advisors, including travel. The advisor must specify that costs are required additional costs, which is very common for people doing field work, for research that is maybe abroad, maybe somewhere else off campus at a certain location. I know, not for a fact, but just in years practice, students who are in colleges such as natural resources or engineering and other areas of campus where you are actually off campus and outside the classroom doing work. That work costs, and that's where the line item comes into play. But if you're not, I don't want you to think, well, I'm not doing that, so why would I need to fill? That's not the exclusive reason why. It's just another line item to cover that expense if needed. And there are various forms of how this would show up for you. Okay. So no, you don't have to be in one specific major or doing research or field work in a specific place. More than it has to qualify through this description for that reimbursement. All right. One thing to note, and this is very important. I'm so glad that this was put on here. The professional development cost, that's not allowed. All right. And sometimes people will think, well, I'm going to a conference. We're all going. I don't have that money. I'm not saying that that's not a problem. What I am saying is for this line item, that is not, this is not allowed for this line item. There are other ways to get it funded. We can talk about that outside of this context, but just to double down on that, we don't want any confusion because we don't want you to waste any time or spend any time on something that essentially is not going to be recognized through the COAAR form process. How to fill out a COAAR form. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy that Anita is here because that's where I stopped. I hope that I did a good job of walking you guys through it line item by line item. Now we're going to get to the point where, okay, well, how do I do this? You just told us about all this stuff. How do we actually get this done? Anita, if you could take it from here, and I will mute my mic. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So I just put a few links in the chat if you guys want to copy those down. First of all, the second link is the one that I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Tommy, would you mind closing out your slides? Okay, thank you. So unfortunately, I can't take you step by step with screenshots because they deleted that document we used to use, Tommy. So instead, I'll just show you, this is the main cost of attendance adjustment website from financial aid. And that's the link I put in there. And it's got a lot of the information that me and Tommy shared today. Again, the COAAR just opened up on August 25th. Hopefully you should be able to access it. And the process, this is what they've got. You're going to click this form here or this link here to the portal, sign in, which it won't let me do because I'm not a student anymore. And then go through the step-by-step process. It's going to first ask you to, to register. If this is your first semester doing a COAAR, you may have to register. And then you'll come onto a page where you can select a plus and select the cost of attendance for the academic year. This academic year, if you're a continuing student, you'll see last year's cost of attendance on there, and you'll see the new academic year, and just make sure you select a new core for this academic year. That'll open up a website or a pop-up window, and it'll ask why you are requesting the core. This can be a very simple answer. You don't really have to worry about this question. You just go ahead and write, I'm requesting the core because my cost of attendance is higher than the budget, or whatever you'd like to write there. I need to request a core. They're not going to pay attention to that. The next form, then it'll allow you to enter question by question. It's going to ask you, for each of these budget items, what is your rent? And that's where you're going to input your housing costs. It'll ask you, what's your transportation? And it'll give you a little section where you can write a summary talking about what you're requesting. And in that summary question, what I do have for you is this sample form here. So this is, like I said, just a sample. You'll have to make a copy of it in Google Drive. And I recommend you go ahead and, you can delete the name and that part. I recommend you make a copy of this and go ahead and do it in advance before you actually submit your core. So so that way you can fill this out. So when you go into the core form, you can just copy and paste, because the actual core form in the past, it would time out. So if you type it into the form, sometimes it'll time out and you'll lose your work. So for transportation, I recommend you just write a few sentences, why you need to drive to school, because you're a student parent and you need to be able to access, go pick up your child from school in a timely manner. That's just an example. Or if you were taking the BART, you would talk about taking the BART because there's a lot of traffic, just an explanation for the items. I gave you a basic formula for the mileage, parking pass. On here basically is all the things we talked about throughout this presentation. You do not have to request them all. And I don't recommend you request them all. Request the ones you need. So for example, tires and car repair, you can only do tires once every 6 years. So unless you do need tires, like Tommy said, if your tires are looking bald, then then request it, but otherwise save that one until you actually need it. And this is just a document that to further help you out. And then when you're in the actual form, you can copy and paste. So I'm sorry I couldn't give you guys a more detailed view of it, but I hope this resource is helpful, and that's that. So Tommy, if you want to do the slides again.
Sure thing. I'm going to go back to these slides. Where are they? Bam. Okay. Helpful links. This slideshow, of course. Links to the, but if that's not the most helpful link of all, I don't know what, you know what I'm saying? Okay. Helpful links, this slideshow, link to the core form, more from financial aid on documentation, and our student parent YouTube channel. These are very, very helpful links. I think all of these should come into play at some point. I think you should start with this slideshow after tonight. And then I think the first two, you should start student parent YouTube channel. Yeah, definitely. But if you only had like 3 to choose, like tonight, like I ain't got no time to do 1, 2, 3. You know what I mean? So they're in perfect order. All right. Timeline. When the hell do I get this damn money, please? Okay. What is it gonna, how long is it gonna take? So the core takes approximately 2 to 4 weeks to process. It can take longer or be expedited if needed. And when we say if needed, it really is student to student. With respect to what you might hear across the board from a lot of different students, or even staff and faculty, other departments. Trust is a big word, but trust Anita, trust me, please. It takes about 2 to 4 weeks to process, all right? And if it takes a little longer, it's probably because it's maybe questions that need to be answered, or the situation is a little more involved or complex. That's not a guilty verdict for some crime you committed, nothing like that. It's just, it's gonna take a little bit longer. And we can get you through that as far as different resources. If it's really crunch time financially, or just with the resources, you're like, yo, I needed to pay for that. I still need that. What's going on? Or on the other end, it could be expedited if needed. That is a totally different context. And I think I'll say check in with me or Anita or student staff if the situation calls for it, just about why you need someone to advocate for the COAAR to be expedited a little, make it happen a little bit faster. Due dates, April 8th, 2022, AKA not tomorrow. All right. That's a good thing though. Now, if you're graduating this fall, then the COAAR is due mid-November. And that is, I wouldn't say that's just fine. For some people, it's like, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to fill it out before mid-November. Pretty please try to fill it out before mid-November. Okay. So if you're graduating this semester, but if you're not, one more time, April the 8th, 2022. That is where the deadline exists. And if you fill it out into next year, let's say you fill it out, I submitted it April 7th, you know what I mean? You do receive retroactive reimbursements for the academic year. So that is something good to know. This is the part for people watching asynchronously. You couldn't join us in person. That's fine. We are done with the recorded version of our cost of attendance adjustment request form workshop here with Student Parent Center. I'm going to stop recording. And for those with us, this is time for our private, non-recorded question and answer portion of the presentation. We will be back on Thursday for people watching this. If you watch it and say, oh, I got some questions, you can always email us, tlanier@berkeley.edu. It's my direct email address. And Anita Adams, just like it's spelled, at berkeley.edu. I'm going to stop sharing